Our EMI students working in their second language struggle to follow the lecture. Okay. I want you to have a think about those two questions and just type a few ideas into the chat box for me. Your opinion, what do you think? Thank you. Yes, it's a very good point. Sorry, I can't see all of the names, or I can't read all of the names. So apologies for not properly acknowledging who's written that fantastic answer there. Yes, good, excellent. Yes, good. Yes, yes. Excellent. Very nice, everybody. Yes, you've really got some great ideas here. Students are dealing with two different things here, aren't they, very often? We've got the content, that high-level complex content of the course, but we've also got the fact that they're doing it in a second language where they perhaps don't feel as confident. They're not used to studying in English like that. Yes, some culturally specific content. Yes, very good. I'm going to look at one particular issue that I think someone has touched on here, whoever wrote the comment about having proper guidance. I want to show you one way that you can really guide your students in the lecture. So what I had on that audio was a little excerpt that basically had no signposting language, okay? It had no guidance in terms of language for the students to follow. So signposting language, this is how you should have felt listening to the excerpt. Signposting language is language that tells students what's coming up next. Okay. So for example, if I'm lecturing and I say, blah, 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 however, students, as soon as they hear that word however, they know that a contrast is coming up next. Okay. So this signposting language effectively guides the students through the lectures and tells them what's coming up next, so they can prepare for it. So on this next slide, I've got my audio in white. The bad audio was in white. And the blue that's here is the signposting language. Okay. So we can actually go through and look at the function of the signposting language here. So this first one in blue, so far we've looked at traditional tests. Now let's move on to performance assessment. This signposting language really helps the students understand the content. It tells them what they've just done, what they've just heard, and what's coming up next. So this helps them take excellent notes. It's also a really good way if you've got large groups, if you're teaching to 100, 200, maybe even more students, we need to use this signposting language to make sure the structure of the lecture is clear. If you look at this one here, we've got whereas. As soon as the students hear that word whereas, they know there's a contrast coming. An example of this, students write e.g. and then they focus on what's coming next because they know it's going to be useful. So this use of signposting language, so helpful in letting the students know what's coming up next. Okay, so hopefully the students go from potentially a little bit confused and working very hard to follow the content to taking excellent notes, really being able to think about the concepts that are in that lecture. And that's what we want our EMI students to be able to do. So thinking about our signposting language, if we take it out and there's not enough signposting language used in the lecture, what can happen is the students get lost. They can't feel the structure and the direction of the lecture clearly. So they start to worry a little bit. It's hard work for them. Yeah? They get a bit lost. As a result, they take poor notes. Yeah? As a result, they start to feel anxious. They start to feel negative. They don't reach their potential. So we know from working with our students in a second language that this signposting language really supports them in any kind of communication. Okay? And we can use signposting language to do so many, many, many things. Yeah? I'm going to show you all of the things that you can use it for. Introduce the topic, establish its relevance. Yeah? State your purpose. As soon as you say to the students, this purpose of this lecture is, they pay attention. Yeah, they really do. Tell them what the structure is going to be. Is this, a problem and solution structure? Is this structure going to be in chronological order? How are you presenting your information? Tell the students so that they can be prepared for it. Conclude and summarize the main points. Again, students really pay attention as soon as you say, in conclusion, they know what the main points are going to be. Refer back to the previous lesson so they can see how it fits into the bigger picture. Move from one point to another. All these little words like first, second, third, moving now to next, they're really short. Yeah, but they're really sweet for the students. Short and sweet, we say. Very, very helpful. You can make a backward reference to something you've already talked about. Helps the students link that in their notes. Emphasize key points. One of the things that we know benefits our EMI students is that element of repetition, really stressing or emphasizing certain points. And our signposting language can tell the students what those key points are. Provide examples, really nice. And refer to your visual material, whatever that is. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure you all have excellent English. So use that signposting language in your lectures as much as you can. It will help students and it will point them in the right direction. It will make them feel more confident about the content. So if we sort of summarize that, and signposting language not just used in lecture, not just used in spoken communication, but also in written communication. Yeah? It helps the students follow the structure, yeah, and follow the content. And I think this has a really positive impact on the notes that we take. Yeah? And we know that the notes students take in lectures are often what they use for assessments and exams. So really, really important. Yeah? Especially important, I think, when you're dealing with large classes. Yeah? Active learning is fantastic, group work is fantastic, but quite often we just need to give a lecture to a large group of students. If that's your situation, make sure you've got lots of that lovely signposting language in there. Hopefully, all of this signposting language reduces the students' cognitive strain. This means they don't have to work as hard to focus on following the content. We want them to be able to use all of their brain power to focus on the concepts. So if you think about your EMI students, yeah, I think most of you are at university, so they really are doing a lot of, heavy lifting with their brain power, aren't they? They're dealing with very complex concepts in a second language. So whatever we can do to help them focus on those complicated concepts and not have to worry about the language, the English side of things, it's really going to help them. Yeah, reduce the strain, hopefully help them feel a little bit more confident about what they're doing. So just in reflection, I want you to have a think about the current lectures that you deliver. If you're delivering them in English, can you add more signposting language? Are you making sure that you're supporting students when you're moving from one point to another? So thinking about vocabulary support for your students. Okay, I'll just give you a few seconds to read through that slide. So actually what we're doing here with these concept checking questions is really sort of shining a light on that item of vocabulary, letting students know that that concept is really, really important. It's not just a word that you can ignore. You need to be able to use it accurately and confidently. Yeah? And you know, as experts in your field, you know which vocabulary needs to be focused on. Yeah? So CCQ is one tool that you can use. We've got a few other tools that I want to show you as well. Okay. Again, these are all tools in your toolbox. You decide when the right time to use them is. Mm-hmm. The second, before we have a look at these, the second challenge I think that everyone identified was the amount of vocabulary that you had, or the amount of vocabulary the students have to learn. Some of these techniques are great when you've got lots of items of vocabulary to cover. The first one is a glossary, where you produce a document with the important items of vocabulary and a definition. My advice with EMI students is always with the definition, try and put an example sentence in. Also, if you can put the pronunciation in there as well, fantastic. And let them know whether it's a noun, a verb, an adjective, that information as well. Second one is a word bank. I'm going to show you an example of this in a moment, but it's just highlighting the keywords to the side of the text, so the students know what items from that text they need to focus on. The third one, we have so many tech tools that we can use to get the students to practice the subject-specific vocabulary. Exploit them as much as you can, especially in your LMS, which is what we call your learning management system. I'm sure you've got a great one. And there's a lot of really good things that you can do within your learning management system that will support the students with the vocabulary. Yeah. Next one is a little one, but it's really powerful. Just think about your formatting in your documents. Yeah. We've got bold here. As soon as you bold something, it stands out a little bit. Yeah. Use italics, make it lean a little bit, underline. Yeah. Little things like that do help students. Yeah. It's a little message, isn't it, that this is important vocabulary. Yeah. And then we've got brainstorming. Great for getting students to produce vocabulary. They learn from each other. A lot of peer-assisted learning happening there. And then we've got quizzes as well. All right, we're going to have a look at some of these examples in a bit more depth now on this next slide. I've got 4 different texts here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 6. Yeah. You can see here, I've got 1A, which is the original text without any support for our EMI students. 1B has got some support for our EMI students. It's exactly the same text, but there's been a technique used to support it. Okay. Have a look at 1A and 1B for me, and then have a look at these examples underneath. Okay. Which example is being used here to support our students? Have a look, guys, and you can type your answers into the chat box. Sorry, there's some here as well. Goes all the way along here. So what they've done here, look, they've got the vocabulary that's important. Yeah. Good. Thanks, Becky. So what they've done here is they've highlighted the key vocabulary items. They've just put them in bold. Makes it stand out more for the students, shows them what's important. Okay. I have to say, I think for such a short text, they've highlighted too much vocabulary. For me, this is too much. And when you put too much in, it loses its power a little bit. So yeah, my only suggestion there is not that much in a short paragraph, but it's a good technique to use. It's quick and it's easy and it highlights that key vocabulary. Yeah. All right, have a look at 2, everyone. Have a look at this one here. We've got 2A and then we've got the improved version in 2B. What's the technique there? Yeah, well done, everybody. We've got there our glossary. Okay, so we can see here they've got the item of vocabulary that's really important. They've got germinate, and then they've got a short definition, to sprout. This, I think, is good at the beginning of the course. Yeah, when the students are first meeting these items of vocabulary, when they need the most support with them, a glossary like this is great. Yeah, if you've got a core text that you need to give your students, it's fantastic. I also think with the glossary, you can get one for the whole course or for the whole semester, potentially, depending on how many items you've got, and give that to the students at the beginning of the semester, and let them know this is like your dictionary for this course. These are all the key items of vocabulary here. But very nice for the students to have that support with the meaning, because we know the meaning is something that they need some support with. All right, good. Have a look at 3. This one might make you a little bit hungry, but we've got 3A and 3B. What's the support system here? Yeah, good, everybody. Yeah, very nice. This is formatting. So one of the things that students can find a little bit overwhelming when they're working in a second language is a very dense text. You know, a lot of writing together. It just looks a little bit overwhelming. By putting it into a list like this, it makes it seem more achievable. It makes you want to look at it a bit more, I think. You can see, there are 4 points here that I need to work on. Or 4 points here that I need to make a note of. Everybody loves a list. But it's not just list with formatting. Even something like white space, when you make your documents, giving students enough space to write notes around or translate if necessary. I think when our students are working in a second language, they really benefit from a bit of space in the document to make notes, to translate, to highlight, to annotate. Very helpful. All right, which means the last one is pretty easy, but I'll just give you a few seconds to have a look through. So what we've got here is our example of our word bank. And I think this is quite nice to sort of compare it to our glossary, because you can see we've actually got less support for the students here with the word bank because the definition has gone. But it's still says to our students, okay, these are the words that you need to be confident with. It's a little reminder. These are key terms in our industry, yeah, in our discipline. You should be able to use these now confidently. So I think, glossary, fantastic beginning of the semester, beginning of the course. As your students gain confidence, you can reduce the support a little bit and maybe just give them a word bank at the edge of the document or the bottom of the document. A little check. Yeah? Remember, everyone, you can use these words. Confident with the meaning. Good. So hopefully a few techniques that you can use there. Little changes that we can make to build our students' confidence with the vocabulary. Yeah. Good. So think about your subject, everybody. I want you to think about an item of vocabulary, a term that students struggle with. Yeah. Have a think. Is it the meaning that they struggle with? Yeah. Is it the pronunciation? Got some awful words here in English. Phenomenon, specific. This one here, pronounced quinoa. Can you believe it? Quinoa. Yeah. In academic English, we have some words that are very challenging to spell, is a nice way to say it. Very challenging. Yeah? Or is it the L1 to L2 translation? Whatever that issue is, think about that term that you identified. What's the issue? Have a think. Have you got some tools now that you could use to support your students with the meaning of that item of vocabulary? I hope so. So in summary, thinking about our second issue with the vocabulary, asking our concept checking questions, using those tools like glossaries, formatting, all of that stuff, it helps the students. Helps them understand the concept, helps them understand the meaning of those key items. And identify which words, which terms are essential. As experts in the field, you know really well which items are essential. Our students don't know. They don't have that professional knowledge yet, especially if they're first year uni students. They could be very, very new to the industry, new to the field. They need clear messages about which items of vocabulary are important. So using these concept checking questions, using those tools like glossaries, builds the students' confidence, enabling them to use those items accurately, confidently, and then hopefully reduces their cognitive strain. They can use all of their brain power for the content. That's what we hope works. So have a think. Think about your subject. I hope you've thought of a few vocab items that you could ask concept checking questions for to get evidence of students' understanding of the concept. And we know when students are happy with the concept, they're more likely to use the item. If they're a little bit unsure about the meaning, they won't want to use the word. They'll try and find a way to not use the word because they're not sure. So these techniques help increase their confidence.